All right, and we're back with another episode of the Critical Fools podcast. This is episode number 55. This week we are reviewing Foxcatcher, which is directed by Bennett Miller. This is a little bit of an older film. It came out in 2014, and it was nominated for quite a few awards, mainly because of the performances of the star actors, that being, Steve Carell, Channing Tatum, and Mark Ruffalo. And one of the big reasons that I selected this film is this was might not be the first, but it was close to, it was either the first or one of the first films where Steve Carell started engaging in more serious roles. And it was really interesting to see him portray John E. DuPont in this film, because it's a very weird character with a lot of interesting quirks, and I thought Steve Carell did a phenomenal job. And so I could see why this received quite a few nominations for different awards for mainly the performances of the top three cast members. Anyway, I kind of want to get your initial thoughts, Chris. What do you think of this film?
Well, I did take your recommendation. I did watch some actual John DuPont interviews. Yeah, I mean, the guy is freaky. I'll say that. Like, to Carell's point, he must have done a lot of character work. I don't think he should do any method acting of this guy, because it probably would drive him insane.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the guy comes across as creepy. But anyways, going back to what you asked me about the film, I thought the film was like, actually, I think now that we've done a few Academy Award type films, I really have a feel of like the style they like. Like, this film was very like, thematic still, and very like the acting was powerful. But like it, how do I say, like, it, now I'm starting to feel a taste of like, you can tell
What to go for.
Yeah, like now maybe I've been watching too many films of this ilk that like now I feel like I know what an Academy Award film is.
Yeah, but here's the thing, and I think that's what sort of made this film stand out a little bit. You were even telling me you couldn't tell that was Mark Ruffalo for quite a while through the film. That's pretty impressive.
It took me a minute, not quite a while. It took me a minute. It took me a minute because I got used to see him in a different body type. I was just like, is that really Mark Ruffalo? He looks yoked, dude.
But he's also.
Then when I saw his eyes, I was like, okay, if I just pretend like he just gained pounds. But no, this film was like really good. I thought it was. I mean, it was an interesting topic for me because I'm not into wrestling. That was a cool aspect.
Wrestling, yeah.
I know of the DuPont family because of the medical like angle, because but I didn't know about like the whole weird, potential weird family dynamic. Also, a small fact that people, if you didn't, I mean, you might have known this, that like he's the first like somebody of his net worth to ever be incarcerated, which says a lot actually about. Yeah, look it up. Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was like he was. It was. I mean, his was like a clear cut. Like there was a lot of evidence.
What are you gonna say? No, he's gonna get off. It's no way.
Yeah, but it also made me think like, oh, this country is not that old. Like, that says a lot, maybe about our justice system. I was like, okay,
for sure. A lot of times you get off on like a technicality if you have a great team of lawyers. The issue with this is there were so many witnesses. And it was a murder one charge. I don't know how many people of their net worth necessarily have been accused of murder, which is harder to get off when it's this clear cut.
Yeah, so that's something. That's a small trivia fact for the audience. So,
wait, hasn't Bernie Madoff been incarcerated?
But not for. This is for murder, like for.
Oh, for murder. Well, to that point, I would ask how many people of that type of net worth have been accused of murder.
I'm actually. Oh, that's what it is. So to this date, he's the only member of the Forbes 400 richest Americans to ever be convicted of murder. Yeah, I mean that's true. It's not that many, but still, you would think, right? Like
in
our history, like it's.
I mean, yeah, but how many people have been accused of? If no one has shot someone else or like killed somebody else, then how is that statistic weird?
Well, to your point. It's not weird, but maybe it's like just an outlier, because usually these kind of folks, they will use other means, right? Like that's
Sure. But then that's conspiracy. That's not actual murder.
Yeah, but it's I mean, this guy shot a guy point blank. But sorry, spoiler alert. But so that was interesting. I thought like that dynamic that was like also interesting character dynamic was that relationship between John Mark, and Dave.
Oh, that was.
That was like
the dynamic between Channing and Mark Ruffalo. It was so good. I mean, what can I say? I think these guys, because I read a little bit about the history of, of what happened, the historical events, and yeah, you hear a little bit about how there was some tension between the two brothers, and
I
then
also
that just you throw in such an odd character like Johnny DuPont, and yeah, it's got to create some crazy dynamics. I thought they did a phenomenal job.
I will say this. We have to do our due diligence. I did try to read like some critiques of some of the films, and Mark Schultz did say like he felt like there was way too much of a homosexual innuendo in this film. He says that's not factual. Mark Schultz.
Like how they portrayed him?
Yeah, or like that relationship. Like it was a bit embellished in his opinion. So I mean, I don't know. Like you could say it's bias, but from him. But we have to do my good diligence.
We don't know. I'm sure there was some, but I don't know. The vibe I got from Johnny DuPont is I wouldn't be surprised if he was homosexual.
Oh no, me neither. But Mark Schultz says they never got to like.
I never said that Mark was. I'm saying from Johnny DuPont's standpoint.
Well, I mean, I think if you look at his critique of the film, he says that they. It's true, like in the film, they might have a little more tension. He says there was nothing of that. I mean, again, take it for what it's worth. It's coming from one individual.
Like an attraction type of tension,
or like even how some of the scenes are filmed. Look, I'm not like I didn't read too much.
I mean, I'm sure. Like they probably took liberties with some of it. More what it was is to show an interesting dynamic between the three characters. I'm sure there's probably some tension because they're competitors, and then John's weird because he's ambitious, but he also has these crazy quirks.
Yeah. So what's interesting? I mean, we'll go through some of the sequences of the films, but like you said, a lot of it is actually. There's some interpretation, but a lot of events did happen. What I found fascinating was like you see that with DuPont, that a lot of his psychological hiccups is all surrounded by his mother. And this reminds me again of like the ancient, like even before we had psychology as a practice, like I even think back to Oedipus, Oedipus X, and like all these like, mother son type of dynamics, and like
an Oedipus,
and he has the same kind of thing, right? Because like there's scenes where he's trying to impress his mother, right? And she's like, "Oh, wrestling is like
it's like a poor sport."
Yeah, it's like who watches this stuff?
A lot of people.
And then,
I'm kind of curious, Chris. Have you actually been to a wrestling meet before?
Meets? I mean, I did see some at Midi. Like sometimes we would have to wait for the gym, and then we would see some, maybe not meets, but maybe practice sessions. So the Midi team.
Actually, went to.
I should bleep that out in the future, but yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I went to the collegiate wrestling match. Well, a couple weeks ago. A couple months ago because it's starting to wind down, but it was interesting. Like it's very technical, and that's something I can appreciate about it. In terms of the scoring and sort of how you get in position. I like a lot of like contact sports, so like MMA and boxing, and there's a lot of tactics. And I had never really grown up a huge wrestling fan, but it was interesting to see. I have an appreciation for it after going to a meet. Because it's just super technical, and it's interesting seeing the weight divisions in wrestling. Because for some of the smaller people or smaller weight classes, they're much more athletic. It's much more high scoring, and then you get to the heavyweights. Like I would say the most athletic seem to be around I don't know exactly what the classification is, around 180, because you're bigger and you have more muscle mass. So there's just a little bit more athleticism and power there. And then you get to the heavyweights, and it's just low scoring because these are just big boys. And it's generally like a 2-1 score. And so like that was really interesting to see some of the differences just be amongst the classes. My friend was explaining it quite a bit. And once you sort of get an idea or the feel, you can see like how technical the sport really is. Anyway, sorry.
I would say like now that way beyond, like, because I'm way beyond that period of my life. The only time I actually watch is probably like during the Olympics, because there's actually a nice Olympic event to watch.
Yeah, collegiate. So the place I went to was really, or the meet I went to was interesting because there was actually an All-American who was competing there, and this guy was just dominating his opponent. I think it ended up being like 20-3 at the final score for him, and it was not even close. So that was interesting, just seeing like you could clearly see the skill set was no match from like a normal collegiate wrestler and then an All-American.
The wrestling scenes in this film were actually, I mean, I can't critique because I'm not a wrestling guru, but I thought they were pretty like engaging. Like I was like, I'm not like super bored or super like, wondering what's going on.
I'm sure they had wrestling consultants.
But yeah, going back to my earlier point was like the mom, is that scene, right? She's like watching the session and John.
Yeah, I was so uncomfortable watching that scene.
Yeah, John's trying to like coach him up, and like she's just like watches like a minute, and she's like, I'm leaving, and then it was like very obvious that like, and even when you read some background on him, that like he had like this like complex, like he really was striving to make his own way. Because it seems like he was somebody who, like you said, he had ambitions, but he had no mechanisms to conduct the ambitions without his resources and empire. Like he wanted to be like, I built.
He was always shadowed by his family name.
Yeah, I want to build a gold medal winning wrestling team, and I want to do it, as the head coach, and with not that he had an extensive history of like, I mean, it looks like he did do some wrestling, but like it's not like he was like known for developing or right. He still had to use the DuPont resources and empire to build that. I will say that the whole Foxcatcher name was cool, but and some of the gold jackets, but that was kind of like where that kind of ended.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess you already hinted at what your take was with that mother-son relationship, but I think that was one of the outside of the three main guys, that was kind of like what gave John DuPont like that extra depth of sophistication. I felt. I'm curious what you thought about.
Yeah, I mean, he's a complex character, no doubt. And they try to show that. I had a feeling he had some type of mental illness. I think that's what they were trying to allude to a bit in the film. I haven't read enough to see if he was actually diagnosed or not, but that's sort of what came across to me. He definitely had a weird dynamic with his mother that certainly comes across in this film. And you could just see the tension between him and the two brothers. Like there is, I think he felt slighted. Like he wanted to go talk to Mark after like he didn't do well in Pensacola for like the Olympic trials. Remember he Mark overate, and so Dave like basically was trying to get him in shape to make weight. And then
that was a crazy scene. Throwing up and then biting on the elliptical. I was like, oh,
yeah. But interval training like crazy for that. But you just see like Steve Carell's character John comes in and he like wants to go talk to him, and then Dave has to go like talk with him. And he's like, nah, now's not. And you see this all from the perception of Mark, right? He's like, looks through the window and he sees Dave and John talking, and John's like, I want to go talk to him. And he's like, it's not a good idea. Let me coach him up and train him. And you see really who's in charge there, right? And you could tell that John was uncomfortable because he wants to be top dog, but he has no business being top. Really, the sort of leader there, who's the leader really is Dave. He's a gold medal winner. He knows how to coach. And that's really what John brought him in there for. But John always wanted to try to rein Dave in. At least that's the vibe I got. And he couldn't do it because he wasn't a strong enough leader for that. Yeah, I think that sort of tension in leadership is started getting at John.
Yeah, I think you're right. You're right on that aspect with Dave, where like I think he wanted to be, because that's so evident when that other scene where like he's doing the video and he's just like he's an inspiration or he's a mentor to you. He's just like, he wanted to laugh because he's like, what are you talking about? Like I built my whole career already. Like he's just giving me the platform to do it. Yeah, so I think you're right about that dynamic. That let's say like that ego, ambition, coaching, if you can call it John a coach, tension. With Mark, I think what he realized towards the end, when he basically lost that relationship, is that I think he wanted that father-son type of dynamic with Mark.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You have that scene where he's looking at the clip.
Yeah,
when Mark is at the benefit giving a speech saying like,
well, they started building something because in reality, when Mark was training, he won the 85 and 87 Worlds training there. So, like, he had the resources. Mark was doing well, and they built something. They probably had a decent relationship at that point. And then it all fell apart when John basically, like, just belittled him and emasculated him. He basically said that in actual world, there was another wrestler overheard of what happened. And basically, there was some argument, and John said, "I can destroy you," or like, "I will destroy you." And so then Mark was just pissed off at like that, and he ended up throwing, intentionally throwing the '88 Olympics. And I think
I did read it.
really irritated John because he always wanted to train a gold medal winner.
Yeah, and I think to your point, like I think, the film, at least the film interpretation, I don't have the biography, that I think at the end, John regretted destroying that relationship, because I think that even though his ambition wanted him to be like basically David's mentor, he really wanted that relationship with like Mark, because I think it meant, because he even admits, right, he didn't have any friends, and the only friend he had was because his mom
Paid.
Yeah, you better be his
Paid
friend.
basically one of their servants' children to be friends with him.
And so for him, it was probably one of the more authentic relationships he did have for that period.
And he ruined it.
Yeah, he did ruin it. Yeah, John's this fascinating, complex character with potentially mental illness, but it was probably undiagnosed.
What was fascinating, what did you think about the angle? Because he saw himself as an incredible patriot.
Again, I think it goes back to his ambition to differentiate or make his own mark, right? Like he had it's interesting because like I'm like, I'm not from that world, but like he comes from a world where
Old money elite.
He doesn't have to really do anything if you think about it.
No, nothing.
And like it's not like he has to marry like a model, but he could find like other aristocrats and like find like a match, and just almost like old school.
He could have somebody from Wendy's if he really wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't have to do anything, right? And so when you come from that world, like it's funny, he has that, because I mean, there's many rich kids that just they milk it, let's be honest, right? But he has this weird chip where it's like, I still want to make myself a differentiator, right? And so I think he sees like his path to do that is, like you said, like, oh, like nobody, like, maybe I'm not an expert in the DuPont family, but maybe nobody's into athletics, so he's like, oh, wrestling, and that's also a niche, more of a niche side, right? No DuPont has ever brought home a world gold medal, Olympic gold medal. Like, I think he tied it all into that. Obviously, it unraveled for him. But it's interesting that he had this interesting chip, because obviously all the we talk about incentive structures, you and I off camera, about other stuff. All of his incentive structures is really based on, here's your silver spoon. Don't screw up the empire. You don't have to do anything, right? He was going to inherit the whole empire. Yeah,
and don't ruin the family name.
Yeah,
that's pretty much it. I feel like through wrestling, like that's what his mom was. She's like, you're just tainting our family name because it's a low sport.
And also, it's like a distraction, right? Like just like like maintain the golden goose here, which he didn't. He blew it up. And actually, the more I read about him, the more I was fascinated, because I think he also, like I said, he had something warped in his brain. His will was even contested. Like he had relatives say, like, wait a second, he gave up this much to
the Bulgarian wrestler.
Yeah, and like what? Like, and I don't know what I forgot what I read this a while back. I don't know what ended up happening with that, but yeah,
it was upheld in the Bulgarian.
Right? Yeah, I knew it was upheld, but I forgot there was any aftermath after that. But basically, yeah, huge chunk went that way, and like you said, probably he is the black sheep in that.
Oh, he was totally the black sheep.
Yeah, especially after the murder, but also giving away money to rando people in their point of view. And I to your point, like it was super, there has to be a mental illness aspect potentially, even though I don't think he was diagnosed officially, because it's just too bizarre, some of his erratic, even in the film, his erratic nature. But also like I said, there's just so much going on in his brain, which is interesting to me, right? It's like he has like whatever mental illness he potentially has, but also he has like this other conflicting emotions of like, I want this, but I also want my relationship with Mark, but I want a relationship with my mom. It's like, it's honestly a very fascinating character. I think he's like, I can see why Carell like killed it, and probably why he wanted the role too, because like the other characters are important too. You know, they're world champions, they're Olympic gold medalists, but it's DuPont that's like the crux of this movie.
Oh yeah. But I would say like they just casted everybody so well in this. I mean, like the chemistry that I would say with Channing Tatum and Steve Carell had, it was great in this movie. And then you throw in Mark, and I think they just all fed off of each other so well, and they really were able to just show on screen how uncomfortable some of these dynamics were amongst the three. Like they were great, and I could see why this they got a lot of praise for their performances. Because yeah, I never seen Mark Ruffalo quite in a role like. Obviously, he had to put on some muscle mass for this, and he was just so serious and kind of awkward. Like I don't know how to describe it. And he wanted to be the big brother. He was condescending at times to Mark, and then Mark could feel that too. And then he also wanted to prove John right, but then John would always talk about his brother Dave. And so it was this interesting sort of dynamics that it really came across on screen to me, which is why I did find this movie pretty enjoyable.
So you also know why it's interesting that like I can't believe I didn't square 2 and 2 together. So I've known about Mark Schultz since I was a kid. Yeah, but I didn't know about this freaking part of this. I knew he was a gold medalist.
Born in the Bay Area.
Yeah, no, I remember like going to like you know, you learn like, you know, where we grew up, right? Local Bay, like not just Bay, but like even our part of the Bay Area. Like, and I remember like you're like he's up there with like, you know, he's one of like Olympic gold like champions, and it's like because I remember I was thinking when I saw the movie, I was like, wait, how come I know this name? Like I've heard this name so many times as a kid. Yeah, and not that I'm into wrestling, but you know how it is. Like if you have people from your area make it big. I look it up, I'm like, yeah, that's why I know the guy. I'm like, how did I know about this stuff? Like, probably not. Like, nobody wants to talk about this weird thing, you know?
Like, this is a crazy story.
Yeah.
So I see why they decided to cover this in the movie.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, I'm glad they covered it, but I'm like, how come? Oh, I guess you wouldn't tell kids about this. Actually, that makes sense. I thought about it. I was just like, wait, how come I didn't learn anything else? I just learned that he was a gold medal champion. He's well known where we grew up. Like,
sure, and his brother's a gold medal winner, 84.
And
I think he won the 83 Worlds and maybe the 85. I can't remember. Yeah, it's crazy.
It is definitely crazy. I'm trying to get like the 100% the fact, but yeah, like it's, you know, they're from Palo Alto. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I just it's very interesting. Yeah, it's and I think there's a lot. There's even like you know, not just placards, but there's also like small like, you know, homages to them and stuff. So it is like.
Oh, that's also what I was going to ask you. What did you think about the dynamic of Dave's wife and Mark?
I mean, honestly,
there was a couple scenes.
Yeah, there's a few, but the one that sticks out to me revolved around why she didn't show respect to John DuPont, and that's when he was brainwashed because he saw the videos.
He was a true patriot. Someone who's trying to.
Yeah, honestly, maybe you have more than I do, but.
See at that point, or like what they were trying to get, I think Mark was always like felt kind of lost or like overshadowed by Dave, and then John gave him an opportunity and kind of gave him some purpose.
Yeah,
and so because of that, like that was his sort of idol of purpose at the beginning, and then she was pissed off when you know, some dude who actually gave him like a big shot, a chance. He wasn't shown respect by his brother's wife. And then he also said that, like when he was trying to recruit Dave, he said, "No, it was my family and wife. We're comfortable where we're at." And so I think he kind of resented her a little bit.
Yeah, I could see that. I guess to me, I mean, such a like minor character where I was like, yeah.
Yeah, but there were a couple. It was like 2 interesting scenes there. But yeah, anyway, probably my favorite was the when Dave was trying to. He basically like slaps his brother and he gets him to like puke. He's like, "We got this." And then you just see some of the crazy ways in which I'm sure this happens a lot that athletes go to make weight.
Yeah, that was an intense scene. I like that scene.
That was a great scene. Like, I don't know did you ever read the movies or the book Seabiscuit?
I want to watch the movie. I didn't read the book though. I read that book called Friday Night Lights though, like twice.
Read that book, Seabiscuit, and watched the movie when I was a lot younger. I think I was in middle school. It's crazy. Do you know how some of these jockeys would make weight because they have to be really small to ride these horses?
Yeah, they're like, even when I saw the Kentucky Derby the other day, like they're like the razor thin. They like no body fat.
Did they would do it back in the day when like Seabiscuit was around?
What, throw up? Pump
No, they talked about how some of these dudes were ingesting tapeworms.
Oh, that's brutal.
Yeah. You basically give yourself a parasite because it helps consume some of the calories so you make more weight.
Wow.
It's just like, gee, I remember reading that. I was like, oh my goodness, the lengths at which some athletes will go to try to, be at the top of their sport. It's wild. I don't know if I could ever do that or like have that kind of drive. It's mental to me.
It's brutal to be a jockey. Gotta say, brutal. I gotta watch that movie Seabiscuit though.
It's a good movie. Yeah, I would recommend it. I haven't seen it in years. I think it came out like 03. So it's been a minute. But yeah, I remember reading that in the book. I was just like, wow, this is mind blowing. And like they just show, like they try to get this across in like these competitive contact sports where you need to make weight. I'm sure they go through crazy lengths. I know they parodied that in Always Sunny, that they loved Charlie and Max drink. What was it? It was crow milk or something like that. I'm like, but
some Muslim milk crap.
But then the MMA athletes like Cowboy Cerrone, they're like, yeah, we love this stuff because it makes us puke and make weight. I was just dying.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah, because you can make weight. Yeah.
Oh man, but yeah, that was pretty funny. Anyway, were there any other scenes that kind of stuck out to you in this?
Other than the big murder scene?
Yeah, I mean, we could jump to that. A lot of this is just like different. You kind of see the rise and fall of the relationship between Mark and John. That's really what.
Yeah, because it doesn't. It's a film that there's time jumps too. Yeah,
a lot of time jumps. You see him train, win worlds, and that's when he wins worlds. That's sort of the height of his relate. Oh, that's another scene I wanted to ask you about. What did you think about when he's prepping for the speech? When Mark is prepping for the speech when they're on the helicopter, and John offers him cocaine, and he's kind of belittling the way Mark speaks.
Yeah, that was. I think that was actually used.
That made me kind of uncomfortable.
That was uncomfortable. I think that was there to highlight that because it's early in the film, right? To me, that was. I think they did well. I think that the writer and directors like they did it to highlight also that like to set the stage that like John and Mark sports might be a unifier because it's a sport. And, I don't want to do too many cliches on sports, but they do come from two different worlds.
Yeah.
Like John was probably educated at every private academy. And
he got a PhD.
Huh?
John got his PhD.
Yeah, like he's truly through all the, like you said, all the hoops of academia and was probably given private tutors. And Mark, I can speak to it because it's like, again, this guy's inducted in the San Jose Hall of Fame. He's not saying he was poor, but like he grew up closer to like how people we know grew up, like just going through the normal system. And
crazy elites.
Yeah, not like there's one thing to be like elite. Well, a lot of one to be like.
Well, there's a lot of Bay Area. This is old money. Like this is
old money.
Tech money. This is old money where you have certain customs. Right. It's kind of the Great Gatsby dynamic.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like that it was for like. Also, I think it sets the foreshadowing for like why that relationship does break apart. Because in the end, one always felt superior to the other. Felt like they could always demean the other person. And this is with relationships in general, right? Like, and this is a male to man, a man to man relationship. But like, you don't want to be in relationships where like the other person just feels like they can just like put you down like no other, And I think John, even though he wanted that, that's I think why it broke down for John. I think even though he wanted that father-son loving relationship. He always felt like, if he had to, play the trump card per se, that he's allowed to do it, but Mark isn't. So he always wanted to feel like, and that was the same problem with Dave, right? Like he had to feel like he was top dog. And I think that was his undoing in the end. But yeah, that was uncomfortable in the sense of like, it was hard to watch, but like, I think it was there to show that. That's my take.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It was uncomfortable because he's just like, it was just so condescending. And you could see like how much at that point Mark looked up to John. And you just see him there. He's like, practice. You're going to be fine. Practice. He's like, you're saying it wrong. Say it like I would say it, like in one take. And you see like the ego that John had in him with all of his, call himself a philanthropist. And then there was another big word that he used that I'm like blanking on, where it's like basically like bird lover.
Yeah.
Like all of these is just like, Jesus, dude. Like this is
I
a
mean,
lot.
he's pretentious. I mean, in the end,
like Mark to address him as a father figure.
yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, you felt this tension. Even I think David was less blinded by it, but like he wanted to.
At some point, Dave never was.
Yeah, he just milked him for his money. If he's gonna give him all this, like he basically like if you look in the real life story, like, he got to live on the basically for free and not like shitty homes, like really nice.
Oh, really nice.
And I think he was trying to like do it like most people in his situation would do, right? Mercenary mentality of like, okay, I'll do this, but like I'm getting taken care of, And actually, he does negotiate that Mark gets taken care of too. Yeah,
that's also what I was going to talk about.
And so he knew how to play it. I guess maybe the mistake, he wouldn't know this, but like what ended up costing his life is that playing games with a madman is very dangerous. Yeah. And he was, all intents and purposes, he is a modern day madman if you think about it. Like kind of cuckoo. And so like you don't know what you're getting.
Well, I would say very much so cuckoo. Yeah, it was interesting. Honestly, John was one of the most fascinating characters to sort of read about and watch, and I don't think that they could have done a better job casting than they did with Carell in that role.
Yeah, he killed it.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I was trying to think. I was like, no, that's the only dude I could really see to really capture sort of all of the uniqueness of John. But yeah. Anyway, is there anything else you want to talk about, or should we jump into sort of the ending?
Let's jump into the ending.
Yeah, so at the end, this is about 6 to 8 years later. No, it was 8 years later because it was 88 is like when you see, and what never really gets talked about in this film, even though is that, and we talked about this earlier in the film, is that Mark intentionally threw the 88 Olympics in I think the championship match because he didn't want to give. He had a falling out with John, and he didn't want to give him the set. He felt it morally apparently wrong to basically give him the credit of winning a gold medal, of coaching a gold medal winner. And so he throws it, and then 6 to 8 years later, the film jumps to where you basically see John rewatching old documentary of Mark, right, in Team Foxcatcher, and him sort of praising John. And it was pretty tragic because you know that they no longer have this relationship. And he's watching this, and then he calls his bodyguard and asks him, is it snowing outside? No. And he's like, good, get my car ready. And you go, and then the scene jumps, and you see Dave working on his car, and it had snowed outside, so it's pretty cold. But you see Dave had worked on his car, and then you see John in his car with his bodyguard, and they're circling by his house, and you see John roll down the window, and Dave goes up and is like, "Hey, what's up, man?" kind of deal. And what does he says something to him like, "Do you hate me?" I can't remember the exact line.
Yeah, maybe it's, do you hate me or do you like me? Yeah, John asked David a question. Yeah.
It's like, what? No. And then you just see at that moment, John pulls out a gun and shoots him twice. And then Nancy, the wife, comes out. And she's like, oh my God, freaks out. And she shoots him again as like Dave's struggling. And then like Nancy doesn't know what to do, so she freaks out, runs in the house, obviously to protect her kids. But yeah, that's pretty much the final thing you see between John and Dave. And then you see the last scene is and then eventually the police come and they capture John. And then it sets the stage basically for what actually ends up happening. And this actually happened in real life where Mark gets called in for an MMA debut. And what ended up happening is the person who is initially supposed to fight, actually gets injured. So Mark is a sort of like an emergency backup person they have to get to fill in for the fight, and Mark actually ends up winning the fight. But you just see like the crowd cheering Mark's name essentially, and that's how the film ends. So it was really.
And then there's some credits of like what happened after the fact.
About how he like served certain years, how John died in 2010, things like that. So it was interesting. This is just a very big sort of tragic film in the end because Dave died needlessly in this movie, in real life.
Yeah, in real life, it was, and I mean, wasn't really. I mean, I was a child during the coverage, but like it must have felt random too because it happened in a very private, land.
Pretty remote area in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, private land, and also you don't right. You like going back to what the mother was always trying to impart on her son, right? That like the DuPont stay out of it, and it's true outside of the chemical recent controversies of the company, the family does keep a low profile in sense of like they don't.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of controversy with like PFAS and a lot of other pollution issues.
But the family itself tries to stay out of like any we know that they're political power brokers, and you don't hear about them all the time because they're like behind the scenes.
What's last time you thought about the DuPont family themselves?
Until there's murder. Exactly. And then because their company, they'll just say like it's we don't run day to day. That's what they'll say.
We bestow power on other people. We have a blind trust. That's how these people work.
Exactly. Well, your trades are like awesome here.
Blind trust. We have no.
Yeah, blind trust. I have no recollection. I don't know how they're doing these crazy trades that are.
I mean, that's what all the Congress. You remember the recent controversy with when COVID, the announcement of COVID and lockdowns hit. Yeah. Like 4 senators had these crazy trades. Like, how did you know? Like when I saw these, I don't know. We have a blind trust.
Yeah.
Like
what I find amazing is that they say all that, and then you look at the names of like congressmen, and it's like they all outperform the S&P 500.
Oh no, not just outperform. Like blow the waters.
Blow it away. Like
it was 15% gains, and they had 18.
What's crazy is that this was a private citizen investigation immediately. It's like okay.
Oh yeah, are you kidding? Well, I mean, as long as you write the rules, you can protect yourself, son.
Exactly. See, that's where The Wire and even other shows they need to update their language. See, the real dictatorship is not a B cop. It's a congressman who has no accountability that keeps like like you said, writes the rules. Dude.
Because you started watching that new show.
That's true. But anyways, yeah. They should make a show with that title, not with about police, about congressmen. We own this nation. There we go. And make a real show about it.
Yeah, they tried doing that. I think Billions tried to address that a little bit. That was interesting. By the way, I know I told you this. I love how that show just makes the SEC seem so like
they're done. They're hella competent. Are you kidding me?
I was laughing so hard when they like make fun of like the SEC dude. He's like, get out the way. This is the U.S. Attorney General's like business. You guys are like in diapers. I was just dying.
They are. I mean, honestly, okay. Other than Gary Gensler's war on crypto, what has the SEC done? No, really. Okay, other than the war on crypto that Gensler's doing,
status quo.
Yeah. So if you ignore the war on crypto, what has the SEC done in the last 20 years? Nobody knows. I mean, like.
I think they caught that. What was it? Those two. It was like 3 traders from JP Morgan who were manipulating futures markets and metals. Nothing came about that. And it was like blatant, fraud and white collar crime trading. I remember because that case came out, and there was some other big case that like came out right at that time, and so it got overshadowed. I was like, why the hell did this? It was too crazy a coincidence. Like trying to downplay and make sure there didn't get enough publicity.
Yeah, and I will say this as somebody who, well, I have to say that off the record. We'll talk off the record. Off the record. We'll do it after the pod. But
anyway, beyond really what this was a fascinating true story that involved characters that were, really American icons of different social classes and different professions, with characters that had insane quirks. And I would say that the cast did a phenomenal job sort of portraying this true story. I mean, that's what it is at the end of the day.
Yeah. So yeah, no, I agree. I mean, this film was like, speaking of the film itself again, like easy to watch, engaging. You know, it felt like you can sit down, watch it. Have a tea, have a coffee. It was like that
Hey,
kind of film,
comfortable to watch, by the way.
huh?
Steve Carell's portrayal of Johnny DuPont or Teddy Perkins?
Or Teddy Perkins. Hold on, I'm trying to remember now.
Atlanta, the Michael Jackson character.
Okay, dude. That's not even close, dude. I think I blocked it out, dude. Like, you gotta stop bringing it up, dude. Like, you gotta I literally have forgotten about that episode. You gotta remind me. Oh, okay, that's just creepy, dude.
What do you talk about the brilliance of Atlanta? That was brilliant.
That's so creepy, dude. I'm gonna rewatch Atlanta. I'm gonna skip that episode. I'm not.
Why? Dude, to me, that was one of the most brilliant pieces of television ever.
Yeah, I felt so squeamish. I was just like, that's too much, dude.
When he cracks the ostrich egg.
I rather watch John DuPont over and over again, dude. Give me a break, dude.
Well, that just goes to show the writing, because they wanted to make you uncomfortable with that, so they did a great job. Anyway, we want to go into final thoughts.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
I'll go first. Yeah, this movie was good. Solid performances from their main cast. Carell, of course, kills it. I'm not surprised it got nominated. I don't know. I didn't really look into who won it instead of him, because I know he didn't win the award, but that happens sometimes. I think what I like about the film, and actually this is such a fascinating story, is that I know that even though this film came out, I know there's a ESPN 30 for 30. There's even a Netflix doc. So the interest in his character, John DuPont, has not died away because he's so fascinating. And I think we didn't touch upon this, but I guess one of why it's always going to be a fascinating topic for, I think, America's eyes, not just because of the family name, but also we don't really truly know why he killed him, right? He just claimed insanity, and then he stuck with that, and then he never talked about it again. He was in prison and died, And so there is all these, and I think the film also tried to speculate of why, right? Like they try to right, because they have this scene that he watches the video of Mark Schultz hugging him and all that, so to make it seem like, oh, maybe he was bitter about how that all ended, how everything ended in the end. He took it out on Dave, but we don't really know. That's still the film speculation, and I think there's only going to be speculation until the end of time, because we don't know what was going on through his brain, because he had thoughts, right? To get up, get the gun, get the car, and shoot. He had to have thought. It was premeditated 100%, but we don't know what through his brain, whether it was all imbalanced or he had a legitimate personal, just something triggered in his mind. Right. So fascination is very interesting to me. It reminds me of when I watched the Zodiac, that film. And Mark Ruffalo's in that one too, where they never actually found the guy, the serial killer, and you don't really know why in the end, the backstory. Now that was a film that creeped me out. Actually, I couldn't sleep that night. Actually, yeah. The other film that creeped me out a lot was, I might have to just pick Hereditary, just so that
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, just so you have a good night's sleep. Anyways,
you say you couldn't sleep at night.
Yeah, because I don't do well with those kind of movies. But my sister can watch them like crazy, but I have a hard time with those kind of things.
By the way, I'm Midsummer. I saw a part of it. I was like, this is, I don't know. I wasn't a fan.
The style, or it was too strong?
It was just too gory for me. I saw part of it. I was like, this is just too much human sacrifice, things like that.
Hereditary is better than Midsummer. But anyway, so
maybe.
Yeah, my final rating is 7.5 out of 10. Good, solid film. What's you shaking your head, dude?
Nothing. Go ahead.
I have to stick with the facts. Anyways, yeah, my critical list that I go through, which I make it up every time. But yeah, 7.5.
You look back at some ratings, you're like, what was I thinking? With a couple of moments.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead. 7.5.
7.5 solid score. Well, what I didn't like about it is that it's just
all too slow.
No, it's geared too much towards. It doesn't push the medium of.
Here's the thing. What could they have done differently that would have upped the score?
Okay, that's a good question. I would have liked them. to really have explored a little bit further why, even if it's speculative, like why he really killed Dave. Like it's kind of rushed in the end if you think about it. You can try to piece it together, but
they did that intentionally to show how shocking it was.
the
And I think they wanted to keep it sort of open ended and show just how weird the dynamics were. I mean, that's just my theory.
I think they also could have explored a little more deeply, maybe.
I do agree with you though. I thought the ending was a bit rushed.
Yeah, I think they also could have explored a little bit, like maybe like, actually, no, I'm not even gonna say it because I do like how they focus on our main three characters. But like, it would have been interesting to see, like, if other wrestlers, because that in documentaries they explore that, like other wrestlers have takes of what they saw and heard.
So in reality, like how what why he threw the Olympics was another wrestler overheard. He was like a wrestler from University of Oklahoma, All-American. I forgot the guy's name, but yeah, he overheard a conversation between Mark and John about how John was threatening him. They don't talk about
and that's not really clear in the film at times, right? They keep it ambiguous.
I mean, like in the film, it's not super evident that he intentionally threw the '88 Olympics. In reality, it is.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen it. So I know you got to be interpretive, but I think sometimes they could have been factual, and then other times they could have done more of interpretive. I guess that's my stance, really.
Yep.
And me, I like to be harsh on scores because I don't like giving out. I'm not one of those participation awards. And my most glaring critique is, I am now, as we're doing this podcast, I am now getting fatigued of Academy Award style movies. I want to see films break the barrier, like we're gonna pick next week, breaking the barrier.
I thought it was a fascinating story though, which is why I picked it.
Oh, I love the story. I will say this. I love the topic, but like when we're doing a film podcast, like I'm thinking of the medium and like what's pushing film to that next level,
Different.
What's making my eyes watery and teary?
My attention, I was like, this really happened? Like it was just such a bizarre, weird story. I was like, we got to review this.
Like I don't know if I'll pick it, but I got to watch The Lighthouse. That really and that's up. That was up my wheelhouse. I was like, that was masterpiece, dude.
Yeah, because it was like imitating the story of Prometheus.
Yeah, and it had little twists and like the acting. I mean, see, that's what I want. To me, that's filmmaking. This is like. Okay, so if hold on. If Marvel's McDonald's, I'm gonna do the analogy. If Marvel's McDonald's, these type of movies is basically like high end. What's a good high end like chain? But like it's not really like, huh?
You say that's like Alexander Steakhouse.
Outback. It's like Outback, yeah. So see, that's the problem. I need the hole in the wall film, bold and like like I don't understand half of it, but it's okay.
No, you're not like these films you choose aren't a hole in the wall. They're like trying to be like super upscale Michelin star, and they end up really either hitting or missing sometimes. Dude, I still find it so funny that film I picked, New York Schenectady.
Oh, see, that's the type of films I like. That's my kind of film, yeah.
It's so abstract and you're like, I cried at the end. You're like,
and you're like, oh my goodness, dude, you like these kind of movies too much, dude.
No, but like I like them, but that one I was like, it just wasn't clear enough.
Oh, I like it when it's more murky.
It was murky. It was just opaque.
I like it when the murky. When you have to read through the lines. Anyways, go ahead. Your take.
Yeah, but you didn't like Teddy Perkins, which still disappoints me. Anyway,
I like the episode, but it's just I don't know.
The themes were so good on that.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I digress. Anyway, I thought the acting performances were stellar in this movie. I haven't seen a lot of Channing Tatum films, but you said that he's knocked it out of the park quite a few times.
Yeah, he's actually pretty good. Yeah.
I thought Mark Ruffalo. I was just saying it took me a minute to recognize him, and then I was like, "Wow, that's him!" And like his acting style, like portraying Dave, was really good. I thought Steve was, phenomenal. What else can you say about his performance? He was quirky. He made me uncomfortable a lot of the times. His mannerisms were just on par, especially when I looked back at some of the footage of the actual Johnny DuPont. I was like, "Wow." I was like, Steve spent a lot of time sort of studying and analyzing a lot of the complexities of this character. Acting standpoint, thought it was phenomenal. At some points in this film, I thought it was a little slow. And at the same time, I thought the ending was really abrupt and kind of weird. How they ended it with the MMA style ending. Yeah, something just didn't seem right. I thought they could have had a different choice with that. So this was just a fascinating story, which is also why I wanted to review it, and because of the cast. So because of some of those, I give it an 8.5.
Solid.
Yeah, it was solid. I think a lot of people would watch it. I think they did justice on a factual story, but there were some things they could have done better. And that's not taking anything away from the 3 actors. I thought they were tremendous. I think you would agree with that.
Oh yeah, the acting was great. I'm looking forward to next week because the scores are gonna be like this.
Yeah, be given 9.5, and I'll be like
0. It's like yeah.
So that already gives it a 1.
You're like you're gonna. I already can see it. I can be like, yo, I think you need to start reading like abstract philosophy, Chris. You're good.
Well, then I'll be like, all right, we'll get a little pop philosophy. Let's go to the Matrix.
I love the Matrix, though.
I know you do.
I love that. Every pop philosophy, we'll go deeper. You know, we'll go to source material. You know, we'll start
Well,
quoting.
it was like in 3, they really get into like a lot of deep philosophy. Like
yeah, that's what people lost interest because they're like, "What's going on?" The creators were like, "We always wanted to do this story, but we were." It was interesting, right? Like the creators talk about how like the first film they had to balance like being straightforward, but also sprinkling the things they wanted to. But as they got more popular and they had more creative license, they just what's the term they said like they delve into like what they wanted to do, and like it did get kind of like abstract for people.
Or philosophy, yeah.
But anyways, that's pretty much I'll let you end it. But
anyway, if you enjoyed our commentary on this episode, please like and subscribe to our channel. And be sure to comment some suggestions of films we should review. We're always interested in looking for like more unique and interesting movies. So be happy to take your suggestions. Anyway, until next week, and we're out.